Welcome to the ArcFluence Podcast, where we talk about how design impacts the way we live, work, and invest. I'm Nick Karakan, your host, and today with me are my two business partners and co-hosts, Paul Fatkins and Nino Semrajic. How you guys doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
We got something special for today, right?
Episode 21 coming at you.
So we can legally drink now, right?
Yeah,
we're
There you go.
we legally can. Cheers.
I'll buy
Cheers to that.
Cheers.
By the first round. First round's on me. We actually have a remote guest today, Fabio Zaniboni, who is an expert in the IoT and smart building industry. This is going to be a really fun discussion, which we already had. Wasn't that a lot of fun, you guys?
Yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah.
It was excellent time. And I learned a lot.
Without further ado, let's dig into this episode.
Well, hi, Fabio. Welcome to the show. Excited to have you on as a guest of the ArcFluence Podcast.
Welcome.
I'm so happy to be here today.
Yeah.
Thank
Welcome,
you.
Fabio.
Yeah. Well, hey, let's start by you just telling us a little bit about your background and how it's relevant to the industry, because you're an engineer.
Yes. So I'm an engineer. You're all architects, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So hopefully that there is a a good feeling for engineers. Anyway, kidding. Engineer, worked for many years in robotics.
Wow.
On the last 20 years, work in lighting. When the LED revolution started, we were early adopters and we did a lot of very cool things with lighting. And then since 2017, I've been doing controls for another 20 years, roughly. I was doing controls for yachting and then cruise ships, and then I went to land. I did, I don't know if you know what is PoE, but it's power over internet, so low voltage, very interesting application. Yeah. And then last project we did was a huge residence, and I realized because there was so much Cat 5 going all over the place that wireless was the way to go. So got into the space of open source, and we are Bluetooth NLC or Bluetooth Mesh, that is an open standard. And with that, not only we're able to control lighting and shades and HVAC, but we are able to control, circadian lighting. We're able to control sound masking. We're able to control CO2 levels. So getting into the IoT space opens the door to so much more functionality, so many more benefits, and so much more value than just, what is the hard infrastructure of a building. I love architecture. I grew up in Europe and South America, and when I was a teen and it was time to get out of university, there was a big debate between me, and it was should I go straight to the beauty and the aesthetics and construction, or should I go in an environment where there was more mathematics and more physics and more technology. And I became an engineer, but then I went on straight to construction for a few years. And growing up all over the world, my dad was an industrial, and my mother was working for the embassy. So I was traveling a lot. I love culture. I love talking to people and experiencing different angles about life. I couldn't stay until 2:00 in the morning every night, in front of the CAD, developing. But it was super fun. So I went back to engineering, and for about 20 years I was in automotive. And automotive is it's a very interesting discipline when then you start translating what you learn about how to build a car into how to build a building.
Yeah, I can tell you too, just so you know, Nino and I are definitely big automotive heads. So we follow Formula One. We love automotive design. Actually, you can see Nick has his Ferrari hat on.
I see the Ferrari hat.
Yeah. So, and Nino actually sketches automotive stuff as well, just for fun. So yeah, like definitely automotive design, just design in general. We definitely have a feel for that sort of stuff as well. So it's nice to hear that from your side.
Yeah. So in the 90s, I was in Detroit, automotive, and then early 2000s, I was back in Torino, where Fiat is,
Wow.
Fiat owns Ferrari and
Wow.
Lamborghini and Maserati and so on. So yeah, very cool design, plenty of technology. And then, it's almost like the Africa bug. When you come to America once, you kind of leave your heart there. So I know that many of my friends say, well, Detroit is not the best of America, but still I love it.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I had the opportunity, the beginning of it was 2007, I had the opportunity to come back to America. And so I came back to America into the lighting space. So lighting space at the very beginning of LED, when LED were bluish, low CRI, low efficiency, and they were burning, if you didn't use huge heat sinks. But for an engineer, you just extrapolate how the technology is improving every year, and in 3-4 years it's going to be a mature technology. Everybody's going to start up,
Sure.
adopting it. And from LED, of course, when you move from your traditional sources to LED, you're moving from electricity to electronics. And the thing that is very interesting is because an LED is a diode, is a diode that emits light when you put some current through it.
Yeah.
And so the moment you transition a piece of your project from electricity to electronics, you're opening the door to everything good about electronics. And that includes also IT, IoT, and so on. So every LED needs to have a driver, and the drive is a piece of electronics. And the moment you have electronics, you just add a chip that is a little bit more powerful, and now you have almost a full computer on your ceiling by your LED source. And now that you have all these little computers around the house or around the building, commercial, we do a lot of, from office space to healthcare to a lot of hospitality projects, schools, and so on. But once you have that technology on your ceiling, the sky is the limit, really, because you, through that highway of wireless communication, you can put your sound masking, you can put your air quality system, so checking your CO2 levels, your oxygen levels, your VOCs, there is smell, there is no smell, you need fresh air intake, and so on. And then, of course, on lighting wise, we do very cool stuff with circadian.
Hey, Fabio, first, thank you for joining this podcast. I think it's going to be just one of the series with Fabio, because based on your background, we can talk for hours, I think.
Just on the automotive piece alone.
Exactly. Exactly. You mentioned IoT. If you can just explain what is IoT stands for people that listen us, but they are not aware of that.
Yeah, so IoT stands for Internet of Things.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to consider in the 90s, you get this internet thing that happens all over the world, where you have these big, huge mainframes, big, huge computers at universities connecting to each other. Okay. And from there, you get to the late 90s, early 2000s, and you start getting computers connected to them.
Yep.
And then you get with the iPhone in 2007, you start having a handheld device connected to the internet. And from there, 2012 and so on, with the evolution of, in 2010, you have Bluetooth BLE, that is Bluetooth Low Energy, that allows finally to have this computer not requiring a ton of energy. And now you can have wearables, you can have watches, you can have rings, and so the transition is from those huge key pillars around the world connected together. We get into every single person connected together, and you get into every single device connected together. From your coffee pot to your HVAC system to anything. And the moment you connect everything together, you are opening the door to some incredible solutions that you can experience when you do like your home automation and you use your high home and so on, where your coffee pot can get warm in the morning just because it's connected to your alarm clock, and your HVAC gets set to the right temperature because you are 2 miles away from your home, because you're using Nest. There's all these different things that are happening. So from one side, you're opening the door to these amazing value, amazing comfort that you can develop. On the other side, of course, you're opening the door to some liabilities and some risk, and that is security, and is privacy, and so on. Yes.
Wow.
What is your experience in navigating that apprehension against those vulnerabilities to this technology?
Yes. So my take with my company is that we're putting a privacy on the top of the list. So how we handle that? We handle it by, without getting too technical, what is called edge computing. So when the computing process and how you elaborate data, we do it at the device level. So within your premises and so on. So let's say that I want to have a mic system that increases or decreases your sound masking depending on how many people there is in the room and so on. Well, that mic could just get all the all the content, push it to the cloud, like for instance Amazon does, and then now you have all that content on the cloud that can be used by anybody.
Yeah.
And I can start selling my content because I know exactly what you're talking about or what you could be interested about. So now you open social media and you see that pop up exactly about what you were talking 2 minutes ago with a friend or whatever. So what we do is we process the information at device level. So when we push to the cloud, we push, for instance, if we're talking about sound masking, I'm only pushing a decibel level. So with the decibel level, there is not really much, I can violate in terms of privacy. Okay. So on the IoT space, again, Internet of Things, yes, there is many companies like you can see on the mainstream IoT that gets everything that happens within premises and push it to the cloud. What we do is we push to the cloud only the information that you will be interested in.
I see.
Like if you are a building manager and you're trying to minimize your energy cost, you want to know, which rooms are being occupied, which rooms are not occupied, making sure that, let's say they have 5 chillers, are we always on range? Are we seeing a chiller that is consuming more energy or less? So I can address, I can do preventive maintenance, I can do a lot of different things. Well, in that case, we are pushing to the cloud the information that you will need because now you want to have a history of the last 60 days and see how your strategy to reduce the energy consumption is working. But I'm not going, like for instance, we use a technology called people counting to predict how much HVAC you will need. Because if I get into a conference room and I have just motion and I trigger my HVAC right away, yes, it's already
might be
an
too much for one person.
Bravo, exactly. So if it's one person and typically, and then we get into the world of AI and so on, and typically it's one person and is not enough load to really move the needle, I could decide, well, I'm not going to trigger my HVAC. But if I have 8 people, or for sure if I have 20 people, because now I have a general meeting, well, even if I'm not yet at the temperature that will trigger the HVAC to operate, I should start preventively because I know that with 20 people, we're going to have anyway lack of oxygen and so on and so forth.
Yeah, we were talking about that literally before the start of this podcast. Danny's like, why is it so cold in this room? And it's like, well, I have my computer going. Nick's coming. Nino's coming. You're here, Danny. I'm here. It's like all this equipment is running and we have, so it's like, yeah, I'm cooling the room down. Like you said, it's like anticipating that the room is going to be occupied. We're going to have all this additional heat load in a small space that's enclosed. So it's like, yeah, I'm ramping up the cooling. So, obviously I'm doing it manually. It'd be great if I had a computer to do it for me automatically.
So you mentioned that, you're pushing certain information to the cloud, but major privacy items is on a device. what is that device?
Well, okay, so let's the device will be the microphone, for instance, or let's say you have a sound masking system.
So each individual device.
Yes, and then we use technology that is intrinsically safe. Mm-hmm. For instance, talking about people counting. Like nowadays, you can do people counting with cameras. Mm-hmm. But the moment you are using cameras, it's going to be very easy also to know who is where and so on and so forth. Yeah. And now you're getting, infringing into the privacy in a commercial space and so on and so forth. But for instance, we use for people counting, not getting technical, but we use infrared mapping. Wow. So on the infrared mapping, probably you saw these things. You will see like a blob of temperature.
Yeah.
So I recognize that there is 5 people, but I'm not going to recognize who is there.
No, I see.
So by using certain technology and downgrading, let's say, the amount of information that I need to exactly what I need, I obtain two benefits. Wow. One, of course, is privacy. Second, of course, is security, because now I cannot infringe in information that could be a liability if outside of the building. And third, because I'm pushing to the cloud less information, I also need less, let's call it, real estate into the cloud.
Yeah.
What is happening nowadays? You probably read on the news, like Microsoft just bought a nuclear plant, and Amazon is start getting into tactical nuclear plants. Is because everybody is pushing to AI, everybody is pushing to cloud,
and you need the energy.
I need energy for it.
You need so much energy because there's so much information.
And it needs to be reliable energy.
Yeah,
exactly. So yes, so the IoT as a technology has a lot of benefits, and if you adopt it on the right way, you can minimize really what could be the negatives of this technology.
That's really nicely explained. Thank you.
Danny and I were actually talking about this, and it's not even a technology problem at this point. We have the technology to do a lot of really incredible things. It's a power problem. We need to figure out how to power these.
And also how you actually use this technology. And I like this good example. It's actually, if you use the camera, first you have problem with the privacy. I was like, Mike is constantly late on his meetings in these conference rooms, and Mike is CEO.
Yeah, we're gonna punish Mike.
But not only that, it was like a video itself carries more data than it's actually just a blob, like a temperature blob. And the way how you're using a technology that exists and combined together cleverly, you can, as he said, you can actually kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
Yeah. Fabio, it sounds to me like as we scale into like larger commercial projects, there's more benefit to be had by using this technology, right? There's a lot more benefits on that side as we scale up.
Yeah, I mean, on the residential side, I see it more as a convenience, right? But then once you get to, like you said, if it's a conference room with 5 people or 20 people, then all of a sudden you start to get into energy savings. If you're predicting how many people are using the conference rooms at what time during the day, you need to trigger the systems to turn on or turn off. I think when you get into the commercial space, there's definitely a larger scale of benefits.
Have you and you probably did have an experience with when we're doing, just recently, I was in one big project of the hospital, and we are trying to figure out how we're gonna control the day lighting versus artificial lighting, and of course everything is LED these days, which is huge benefits and cost savings. But once again, it was and then we end up mounting sensors on mullions that not only gonna control just intensity of the day lighting and what lights will turn on and turn off. Also depends how far the light is from the perimeter of the building. So lights that are closer to the daylight, they have less intensity or no intensity. The lights, they're breaking on the zones. But also that same things will actually control our shading systems. Do you have any experience or involvement in these systems that will actually control and balance out input of the artificial lighting versus daylighting?
Absolutely. There is we work around the country as well as overseas, and you are getting a code compliance that is becoming stricter and stricter. Like California, for instance, you have Title 34. It requires to have Zone 1, Zone 2, so primary and secondary zones for daylight harvesting. So you are going to have up to a certain distance from the windows, considering the height of the windows and so on. You have a daylight zone, and then you have a secondary daylight zone, and then you of course, getting deeper into the building, you're going to have less daylight. Regarding that, I'm going to just give you a few things that are super fun. Yes, of course, you can decide. Well, there is automatically, daylight sensors are going to dim up and down your artificial light based on the amount of natural light getting into your space. But then what you can also do is you can have, for instance, an astronomical clock. And an astronomical clock can determine, based on which side your building facade is, north, south, west, or east, can determine where the sun is going to be on the sky. And based on that, could get the shades, higher or lower, just to avoid to have direct sunlight. There is also other things that we've been doing. For instance, if you want to emulate outside with inside in areas where you do not have daylight, some of our devices, they can check your weather on the cloud, and then based on the weather, the lights could be warmer if it's a sunny day, or cooler if it's a cloudy day, and brighter or dimmer depending of the day. I'm going to give you an example. A couple of years ago, we did an airport, and we did all the employees area. And of course, airports, the perimeter of the airport, where you have all that daylight, is primary for airplanes and passengers.
Yes.
So employees, usually they stay inside the building. There is no daylight. So the first challenge for the architect was, okay, so how I can give a perception of the daylight, the day going through. And so we have a functionality. We have a functionality that's called circadian lighting. And so throughout the day, every day in a different way, because, every day you have sunrise at a certain time and sunset at a certain time. So every day you will have the lights changing intensity and changing color. So the intensity is an aesthetic factor, psychological factor, but is also a security factor, a safety factor, because imagine you are in the middle of the night, you have an emergency. If you have your light always super bright, it's going to take you 30, 40 seconds to get your pupil dilate again, so you are going to be able to read what's going on a dark environment. Similarly, on daytime, if you have a very, very dim light and all of a sudden you get outside on a sunny day, well, it could take you several seconds to get accustomed to the intensity of light. So there is that we are doing, and then there is also a technology still trying to stay as little technical as possible. But there is what is called melanopic frequencies. So the sun is the sun is a full spectrum, and as you know, as a full spectrum, you have infrared, that is the heat of the sun, and you have ultraviolet that could be dangerous, or you don't want to have getting inside your premises because it is gonna destroy your finishes and so on. And then there is several other spectrums that trigger different effects on your body. One is what I call the melanopic frequencies. So melanopic frequencies are between the blue and the green kind of band. Is a very specific frequency that the body absorbs to know is day or is night. Okay, so probably you heard pilots and people, going through time zones and so on. The best trick to set yourself is you get outside in the morning and you get bashed by the sun, and the body will reposition its clock based on the local time. So those frequencies, they have a biological effect on the body. They trigger melatonin, or they inhibit melatonin, and they can trigger also like stress hormones like cortisol. So very high levels of melanopic frequencies trigger cortisol, because imagine, since the days of the cave ages, in the morning you get outside, either you run after something or something is running after you.
Yes.
So
you have to be alert.
You better be
exactly.
awake.
You better be alert, and your metabolism need to be high, and so on and so forth. And then at night, where by the fire pit, that very warm color that for us now is the flame of a candle, is cozy, it's relaxing, and so on. The body knows that is time to reduce your metabolism, and now it's time to rebuild your tissues, rebuild your organs, re-energize, and so on. So. Back to what we were doing at the airport, we can trigger these different frequencies based on what is the need or what are the sequence of operation designed by the architect. And that is fascinating, because you can increase metabolism or decrease metabolism just with lighting, and most of the people, they're not going even to see the difference, because it looks like a white light, but I'm just, balancing certain frequencies in a different way.
Yeah, it's actually, I can say that from my personal experience. Like last two company I work in was like I have an office straight at the windows, and never really appreciate as much as I'm appreciating now when I don't have a window in my office. And the reason for that, I will sit there and work, and leaving my office at 5 o'clock, and I have a feeling it's late night. It's a 5 o'clock. It's a late night, and I'm getting to the lobby, and I'm seeing like it's still beautiful daylight, and just like amount of the joy and enjoyment I have that I'm being tricked by is how much you as an individual and your body is actually perceive the light in, not just like
I think
I can see or cannot see, but it's like a mood and everything.
This doesn't impact like how we build, because this would essentially give us the invitation to build larger superstructures, subterranean, functional subterranean architecture. Technology could actually give us the illusion of, all this natural light and essentially work for us. Yeah,
one project I'm working now is for I'm in a healthcare, so in the cancer treatment, I have a lot of cancer treatment facility under my belt. And there is now topic of this healing garden and how we can actually maybe incorporate the technology, like a big screens and whatsoever, to kind of help that healing process, and with perception of the natural environment, but not be too cheesy. You know what I'm saying? Not that just have like a picture of the environment and light behind it, but how we can actually try to establish the mood. Yeah, because when we did this like a session and ask all these doctors that, their job is for healing, not for design and architecture, the primary things they put in there like a session was the patient experience. And that healing process in an environment that is the most stressful one, which is the healthcare, is very important. So Fabio, do you have maybe in your very long list of the stuff that you do in your life, have you have anything like to work on something similar?
Before you answer too, Fabio, I just want to add too, it's like you can't escape nature, right? I think back to like the 1960s, 70s where architects, engineers thought that we could control our environments, and so we sealed everything up, and great, we'll just have this mechanical unit do everything. And it was like,
we quickly realized how unhealthy that was.
Terrible, absolutely terrible of an idea that was. Where it's like all the things you're talking about, again, it's not like you're trying to control the environment, but it's like an imitation that basically, again, it's in our genetics, right? It's in our makeup. You can't escape the nature that is around us. So it's like, again, you're using all of that technology to basically replicate it and benefit you.
Which essentially is kind of allowing us to escape it and have these, extend what our capabilities.
Well, replicate, yeah.
And the reason I mentioned this project is because you're in a vault that is going to deliver high level of radiation. So you have to imitate nature because you cannot provide the window or natural light. You have like a 5 feet of the concrete all around you. So by use of the technology, sound, masking, I'm using sound masking a lot in healthcare, I can tell you that. But there was like just using this visual to calm you down before. You actually saw one of these machines in your, and you saw it's a scary looking technology.
No, the door to get into it was 2 feet thick.
Yes. So it was like how you can make this environment when I'm going to get treated, exposed to radiation. And that's Dr. asked us, it was like, is there a technology that we can have something like a screen to like please our... So have you have any like experience? Not doesn't have to be healthcare, can be airport, can be one of these like malls or whatever, shopping centers, having any similar of this visual integration with IoT?
Yes, we do quite a bit on that space from. And that is very common. For instance, earlier before our start, I was mentioning I've been working on cruise ships and yachts. As you know, cruise ships are very big envelopes. So typically, the center of your cruise ship, you have a problem of light.
Yeah.
So you can have screens, and there is many different ways to emulate natural light. Duplicating the angle of the light throughout the day. So you want to have a certain amount of horizontal light rather than vertical light, and you want to have certain frequencies that have to do with day and night. So there is a big development on that space. Talking about healthcare, let me mention something that is quite interesting. So the majority of the recovery after surgery or after treatment and so on happens during deep sleep. And deep sleep, you typically have like 2 to 4 cycles of deep sleep a night.
Wow.
And
if you're
deep
lucky.
sleep now is pretty, yes, if you're lucky. And so deep sleep has been mapped and correlated to different environmental factors. And for instance, in the healthcare, we address all these different factors. So your first factor is no blue spectrum within 4 hours to go into sleep. And now is becoming common understanding, don't use your iPad before going to sleep, don't use your electronics. Most of these handheld devices now, they have the option of removing a good chunk of blue spectrum, and they become like yellowish and so on.
I need to grab my son and tell him, listen to this guy.
Exactly. Same here.
4 hours before bed.
Yes. And so that will be your first thing. So you want to make sure that on that a patient room, you don't have blue spectrum. And there is nowadays a lot of LEDs that are guaranteed not to having blue spectrum, so you don't have that at a certain time of the day. The second thing that is very important is the cycle of temperature. So there is studies, and if you then go to our website, there is plenty of papers from Harvard, Berkeley, and so on about how deep sleep works. So second is temperature. You want to have that temperature going down to a certain degree, because having that cocoon and exterior fresh air increases your deep sleep. The third thing that you were mentioning earlier about you use a lot of sun masking on healthcare. The third thing is you don't want to have anything that is not familiar hitting the acoustics. Okay, so that nurse running on a corridor, that beeping, exactly. Yeah. So all that the patient, it will look like the patient is sleeping, but it's going to go down from deeper to REM or to other stages of sleep that are still good, but they're not going to be the stages of sleep that you want to increase to have your recovery.
Healing.
So you have that. And the last thing that is very, very important is oxygen levels. Mm-hmm. So a lot of these patient rooms, they do not, of course, they don't move from one room to another or from a room to a common area because they don't want to have pathogens going from different. So typically what happens is they just recirculate the same air. Well, you just had all your family spending 3 hours with you because they're trying to cherish you and so on and so forth. But if you have 2 or 3 kids on a patient room, that oxygen is gone.
Yeah.
Because those kids, they burn oxygen like there is no tomorrow. So now you're trying to sleep, but your CO2 level is at 1200 ppms or 1500 ppms. Like, you're not going to go to sleep.
Yeah.
So back to what we were mentioning, and also what you were saying about nature and so on. Yes, you're totally correct. Unfortunately, our society is pushing us right now in America. 90% of our life happens indoor.
Yes,
and that includes all the agriculture and all the other kind of jobs that are outdoor. 90% of the population, 100% of the population, 90% of the time spends indoor.
Yeah.
So it's very, very important now that we have these tools, now that we know how all these different facets of nature impacts our body, we need to replicate that to get the best out of these buildings.
Wow, that is phenomenal stuff.
Yeah.
I learned today.
Nino knows almost everything, so it's surprising when he does learn something.
No, I don't know everything. No, this is really good stuff. Really, really good stuff.
What other interesting things can you tell us about the industry and how your company interacts, and maybe some of your process? Because obviously you have architects coming to you to design these systems for the buildings that they're working on, correct?
And I'll add to that too. A lot of the projects that we work on, obviously, now with the landscape the way it is, whether it's like somebody looking to make an investment or whatever client it is that we're working with, a lot of times it's existing buildings, right?
Oh,
so it's existing building stock where we're doing a renovation, or it might be some historical building that we're going into. So there's something there that we're already working with. So then the question, I think, also to add on to what Nick is saying, is how do we also then leverage some of these modern things within these existing, building stock that's out there. Well, especially when we get a project from a client that's like, I'm not going to develop something from scratch, brand new. So, but I want to have some of these features and benefits within my building.
And usually majority of architecture is actually renovation and addition. I will say 70% of or overall our work is actually addition and renovation.
And I think it's just going to continue to trend up.
Oh yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Especially in big cities.
So the big advantage on the last 10 years is the new technologies like Bluetooth mesh that allow to do a lot of things, of the things that we just mentioned wirelessly. So we've been doing a lot of renovations of historical buildings or buildings where you can't touch the walls because of asbestos or whatever environmental hazards you may have and so on. And the beauty here is that let's say you have power on the ceiling, okay, and you used to have an old compact fluorescent ugly light. Well, now you can put there a light that changes and dims and has intensity and change color and all the cool things that we were discussing earlier. It just needs power because all the instructions are happening wirelessly. We do a lot also of projects where, for instance, the motion sensors are battery powered, the daylight sensors are battery powered. We have battery power switches. So we do a lot of projects where it's just glass partitions, and on the glass they put a little switch, but it's a super intelligent switch. And that switch, I can press a button and turn on and off the lights of the entire building, or just create a scene, or set a transition, or even create an animation. where lights, change automatically or change color if you want to go a little bit more into the entertainment space. So between the battery power devices, there is also a device that are called kinetic devices. So for instance, on a switch, you press the button and just the energy of you pressing the button is enough energy to trigger a radio communication to your light. So now you can turn on that light without even having to have a battery on that little device. So there is a lot, like technology on the last 10 years has been evolved to allow for what you were correctly saying. Most of the projects, like over 50% of the projects, are renovations. Yeah. And particularly in Europe, we have a lot of historical buildings, and many of these buildings you can touch them. They have historical value. You cannot touch them. And now you need to use this kind of technology that is the state of the art, where you don't need to pull Cat5 through walls or do other.
Some minimum impact to preserve the character and heritage of the building, but you're still able to integrate all of this benefit and technology into the space. Yeah.
Yep.
So Fabio, can you give us give us a hint or a secret? What is the next big thing coming into your world that also is going to affect our world? Everybody's talking artificial intelligence and yada yada, but such a broad spectrum. What is the new piece that you guys may be working on, thinking on, that's going to impact us quite significantly in the years that comes?
Well, the original project that is also the name of my current company was to create the perfect bubble around each one of us. And so I'm focusing right now, and I need to have my lights at a certain intensity, a certain color temperature, and I want to have my sound masking blocking out any kind of distraction. Or I could also decide to have a certain kind of music. And I'm interacting with other people. Of course, I don't want sound masking to impede me recognizing the meaning of the words of somebody that is 10 feet away or 20 feet away. And I want to have a more upbeat kind of feeling. Now, your music is going to be more upbeat per minute, and your lighting is going to have some of that blue hint that is going to trigger some, up metabolism. And so the idea is we can get to a point in which we can have those bubbles. And of course, with machine learning, with AI and so on, the goal is after the third time you get into a space and you dim the light at a certain intensity, the fourth time, the system knows that's what you want. And in the morning, if you get to your office and the first thing is to do certain things, well, the building should be able to do these things.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be better and better as technology is at the service of the people. There is I don't know if you ever came across what is calm technology. It's from the 90s, from the HP lab, and very interesting quote from the 90s, and the quote was, on the 21st century, technology will not be the most valuable asset, but the most valuable asset is going to be attention. And you can see the attention. So if you incorporate calm technology in when you design a space, you can almost think about the perfect space as a space that doesn't attract attention. That glary light that makes you squint.
Drives you crazy. Attention. You want to throw the monitor out the window. I know the light that you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. So that light is attracting your attention. when you have a little touchscreen on the wall and it takes a 200-page manual to figure out how to use that touchscreen, that attracts attention.
Yeah.
And so on and so forth. So the idea is to design something where inside the walls of that building, you can regain the full attention towards what is the most important for you.
These things are stealing our attention, making us less productive.
And
they're distractions.
That is actually they call it now, especially after the COVID, they call that digital laziness.
Yeah.
When they actually figure out people actually working from home, as they're not as efficient as they're actually working from office because of the digital laziness.
The environment.
Exactly. Let's turn up the Netflix.
It's not the fact that you're working from home. It's the fact that you didn't create the proper work environment.
Exactly. And you're losing attention. And attention is also key in schools too. It was like we just came back. We have a meeting with the teacher, and she said oh yeah, your kids are good comparing to others. At least they're paying attention to what I'm talking about. So that's really key things. I actually like we talk about it.
Yes, but if we have a few minutes to talk about education, right now we are at the California Lighting Technology Center, and we are experiencing some of this technology for the California school district.
Yeah,
and there is a lot of studies about. There was a very interesting study from a university talking about ADHD and in kids and so on, and it would say, well, there's nothing wrong on kids. It's just kids are kids. And it was explaining, well, if kids do not have the social defenses that adults have. Let me give you an example. Like if there is a squeak of tires outside my window, I don't lose my attention.
Exactly.
If it's a long squeak of tires, possibly. If it's a long streak of tires and then a bang, probably I'm gonna check out if somebody needs help.
Yeah.
Yep.
But all that is because I'm an adult.
Yeah.
For a kid, anything that is not familiar is an input that requires its attention.
That's very well put.
Using sound masking in a classroom to avoid distracting kids, there is studies where you can increase your arithmetic scores just by using that technology.
Oh yeah, because of
think about
attention.
Or think about exactly attention. Or think about kids. Like you have 20 kids in a classroom. And I'm in Florida, summertime, nobody's going to open the windows because it's so hot outside. But 20 kids in a classroom, that oxygen is gone.
Yeah.
And we did studies where on a classroom, you just need to open 2 opposite windows for about a minute, and you get your oxygen back. Because you create the draft. Yeah. And so it's not that now school districts need to spend millions of dollars on new HVAC, intelligent HVAC solutions and so on. You just put a little sensor that is like $100 of CO2 level. And now when your CO2 level is too high, you can have just one of the lights by the windows, gently beaming. People know is the signal to open the windows. And you just need to do something like this for a minute in the morning and and in the afternoon. And it's not going to break the bank in terms of energy, but over 900 parts per million of CO2 levels, every 500 parts per million, you're losing between 10 and 15% cognitive capacity.
Wow. Hard data.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, I'll step outside for some fresh air and I feel rejuvenated.
Oh yeah.
If I'm working hard at my desk.
And now we are back at the same as you talk about this a light bulbs instead of using cameras, as you said, using simple, cheap technology. And just telling you, okay, open the windows, how cleverly integrating, just resolve the problem.
Yeah, it's like you're taking the information, you're using it in a smart way as well. Yeah, so not only do you have the technology to give you the information, but then you're not trying, again, going back to the example from 60s, 70s, you're not trying to overpower anything or do anything crazy with some system that does all this stuff.
Over technology.
Yeah, it's a simple solution that provides you exactly what you need.
Yep.
Oh. Exactly. What we're trying is to reduce to the minimum amount of actionable data what we push, to the cloud, or what we push within the environment to trigger events and so on.
See, this is why architects and engineers need to work together
more.
Because, I mean, honestly, architects think about the space, right? How does it function? How many people? Where things are located? How high you have to reach something? We're not looking at an analytical perspective where we have a data point.
No.
And based on the data point, it triggers something, right? We're concerned about the feeling,
the functionality.
Yeah, the functionality, the process, the spatial sequencing. Those are the things that we tend to think about more as an architect.
We really focus on our experience with the senses that we have. So hearing, seeing, touching, feeling, and technology can clearly enhance that. Not only just the experience itself, but our health, our productivity. Yeah. So, I mean, done right, it's a huge, huge benefit.
So guys, tell me, how did you meet Fabio?
I think Fabio reached out to us.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. So where are you, Fabio, now? Are you in Europe or are you in the States?
No, I'm in the States.
Okay.
I'm in Florida.
You're in Florida. Oh, okay. Great.
Yes.
Great.
How's it going down there? It's been rough.
It has been rough. Early this morning, I went for a run with my dogs at the beach, and it's still, it's very sad to see.
Oh, you still see the damages from the hurricane. I see.
Yes. Yeah. And we got 2 hits this year. In a month, we got 2 hits. And it was back to back.
I lived in New York City for 10 years, and some of these disasters are local, right? They'll stick with the local population a lot longer, typically, than the rest of America, who's torn when they hear about it. But life gets back to normal a couple weeks later. Whereas for you, you're still dealing with the after effects of it. It's impacts your work and impacts everything. That's crazy.
Yeah, but you are for us. It was a very lucky event because I was as a matter of fact, I was in Europe when they called Milton, and when you look at the news, it's a category 5, and it's 180 miles an hour winds and so on, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm done. I'm gonna lose everything. I will lose the factory, the office, the family, and my kids were here, and what are you gonna do? And anyway, somehow it just they intensified, and it was we lost a third of the roof at the factory. We got some water infiltration at the offices, but believe me, that is awesome. I was so pleased to see only that damage because
happened exactly.
Yeah, because 2 days before it was looking really ugly.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh, glad to hear that.
Wow, that was awesome. Honestly, I think Fabio, we're probably gonna have more and more times subjects to revisit and talk about. I
think highlighting a very a specific project on a future episode that turned out really well would be fun to dive into.
Yeah, you guys do work pretty much across the country, right? Across, you were talking about education, healthcare. Is it's kind of all sectors, or is there one sector you focus on more than another? For example, is education higher on the list or healthcare higher on the list than the office environment?
No, I would say that the embracing of this technology is happening across the board with different facets. There is facets where the well-being is the most important factor. And there is other industries where sustainability it's the number one factor. There is players like commercial real estate companies, and they need to have all those analytics on the cloud. Different buildings. What is the energy consumption? And this is an outlier. Why is that? Let's analyze. Let's find what's wrong, and so on and so forth. There is Fortune 500 companies that have their net zero 2040 commitments. So every year they need to demonstrate reduction in energy and so on. How you can demonstrate a reduction if you don't have the analytics?
Right.
So it really depends. Of course, when we are talking about schools, the energy bill is very, very important.
Yes, it is.
But now that they are attacking the energy bill and up to 10, in the last 10 years, you had all these rebates about going LED. Well, now that I would say most of the buildings in the US above 100,000 square feet are LED. Well, your number one load now is HVAC.
Yes,
and
it is.
If you already have your motion sensors that are triggering your lighting, well, if those motion sensors can talk to your HVAC, it's very easy. Now, your HVAC will go to a set back temperature when nobody's in that room. And now you're saving 20, 30%.
And I believe in California, water consumption is another really important item. So what is the name of the company that you... Is that BubblyNet? Is that the name of the company?
BubblyNet.
BubblyNet. Oh,
yes.
Okay.
Yes. So yeah, now you understand. So on our vision and the way we got with that name is it was late at night, looking at empty pizza boxes and Red Bull cans, and we were talking about the future and dreaming about what we could do about the technology. We came up with like, it would be so cool if we could create all these bubbles so people are at their best, blah 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 blah. And then somebody says, yeah, but what about like an environment like this one now, where Fabio he's European, he would like to have his HVAC at 83.
Exactly.
And I'm American, I would like to have it at 71.
Yeah.
What is going to be the temperature? So we say,
that is very true, Fabio. I'm between two Americans. I can tell you. They want everything super cold.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, thank you for reaching us. This is actually, that was eye-opening in many segments.
Yeah, Fabio. Go ahead.
No. I'm thinking actually I'm definitely going to do more research about your company. How when you guys get established? Was that something recently or?
Well, I started doing controls in 2007.
Mm-hmm.
And I was mentioning earlier, until 2013, we were doing low voltage, because the idea about low voltage is you go with a low gauge wire, so you're saving on the copper,
mm-hmm.
and you don't need, in most of the states, you don't need to go through a conduit, and it's easier, and so on and so forth. But then we got to a point in which the requirements from the owners was they were pushing so much, like they want to have a motion sensor, then they want to have daylight sensor, and they want to have these, and every single time was Cat5 here, Cat5 there, injectors and equipment and racks and so on, and managing the sequence of operation of the building through hardware is becoming impossible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because it's becoming like there's all these conditional logics. Oh, if somebody's here, then I want to have that. But if somebody else is there, I want to have that. And I realized, well, we need to manage it by software.
Mm-hmm.
And then it becomes, well, if I manage it by software, now either I have a huge computer that then needs to be connected to all these devices again through a cable, or we need to find a technology where most of the computing and processing of this information is at the device level.
Yes,
And that is what is called embedded technologies. So embedding intelligence on every single device.
Yeah.
So when we did that transition, that was 2016-17.
So what is your deliverables? So when you if you wanna okay, we have a client who would like to have this smart, who would like to have their own personal bubble. So how are you actually producing the drawings, or you actually installing the devices? What is the BubblyNet actually is doing? Like, what is the deliverable of the BubblyNet?
Yes, so we have different companies around the country
mm-hmm.
that review projects with the architects and the engineers. And then our office of other satellite offices, what they do is they recommend or design where all these devices are going to go and so on. And so we do that. And then what we do is we pre-commission. So we pre-program all the devices based on the requirements from the architect. I want to have this happening and this happening in this hour of the day, at night, if there is people, if there is no people, more people, less people, and so on. So we pre-program everything, and then we ship all these devices that are pre-labeled based on your blueprints. So based on the location so the devices, then they have a little QR code. The electrician just scans the QR code. It shows you exactly how to wire the device. Most of the time, it's just power that needs to be given. And so we don't do the installation, but we do all the intelligence of the building.
And do also you guys doing troubleshooting, or if something go like misbehaving, or you can do it that
yes. Technology never misbehaves.
Yeah.
Yeah. The beauty about this technology is that now you add a little device that is called the gateway, so that transforms the information from local to the cloud, and then you can the gateway can call home, for instance, so it can call us. And either we have what are called health models. So the gateway every so much time pings all the devices. So let's say that all of a sudden there is like 3 devices or 5 devices that are not responding in a certain area, where probably somebody flipped a breaker or something is wrong with power or whatever. And we have the capability of sending a text message to build manager, building maintenance, and saying, hey, there is this zone that is not responding. So the beauty here, when you get into what is preventive maintenance, is that maintenance could be working before gas or before ownership, before problems are perceived. So we have that, and then from the cloud, from here, we can debug systems and we can check what's going on. We can change schedules and change settings. It's yes.
I do have a last question for you, Fabio. So a lot of our clients are on the residential side of things. We love our commercial clients, but a lot of these applications are probably more for that. What is your opinion, advice, or can we use this technology on a residential component, and is it affordable at that level?
Yeah, and I think Nick is saying all the way down to like a single family home.
Correct.
So we're not even residential. We're not even talking like an apartment complex of 100 people. Like say we drop the scale all the way down to the bottom level, single family home. It's one family. So to answer, or to add to Nick's question, basically, like on that level.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So if we're talking about a small residence, probably the recommendation is start embracing technology. Start with a Nest thermostat. Start with some home automation and so on. That is going to be the best solution if you are a little bit of a hands-on owner.
And that would be his house is full of technology.
Yeah,
exactly. So that will be your first level. We do residencies, but usually they're going to be residencies, let's say above 5,000 square feet or 6,000 square feet, usually high end, where the owner wants to have something that is reliable, something that is secure, something that is robust. So it is like a lot of the devices that you can buy or technology you can buy at Best Buy or Home Depot and so on, they're cloud-based. So everything, for instance, pushed to the cloud. And if your internet is down, you lose control. You don't want to have that. So now, if you start getting a bit more refined and budget is not your primary concern, you're going to say, okay, how I can create a network that even if internet is down, everything is still under my control. How I can avoid using my Amazon Alexa device that costs $50, $60 or whatever, but now everything is a single thing that I say is pushed to the cloud, and then that content is being sold not to my benefit for sure. And so at that point, so on residencies, either in terms of scale, where now typically when you're doing these do-yourself home automation, you are limited to 100 to 100 devices. As soon as you go above that amount of devices, you start getting latency, you start having problems, you drop packages and so on, because it's not a technology designed for many thousand devices or very large projects. So I would say embrace technology. Technology can make you save money on your power bill. It can be fun, just to implement them because of the things that can happen. And then you can progress on a system like the systems that we do. And then from there, like once you create this highway, that is a wireless highway where you can move information, now you can start saying, okay, now I can really want to boost my well-being. Mm-hmm. And now we're getting into, how I can increase my deep sleep. Okay. Mm-hmm. And that is a certain technology. How I can increase my circadian rhythm throughout the day for myself, for my kids, my family, my friends, and so on. I want to start having splash of colors just for fun. I want to start having very interesting landscape and changing it depending on the season or depending on the events and having animations. So there is a lot. Once you have your infrastructure, that is, it's not a hard infrastructure, it's still a software infrastructure. Mm-hmm. So it's not that you need to put wires all over the place. Now it's almost like a platform that allows you so much more value down the road. Yeah. So there is advantages in upgrading or starting at this kind of more commercial grade technology rather than what you will find at Best Buy.
And I gotta say, I definitely love the approach to have it at the device level, to have it wireless. Yeah. A couple years ago, I worked for another company, and we had a client who I can't say their name, but they had stores where they had all this hardware and it was all wired, and we had these cable trays that had thousands and thousands of cables, and it was designed to track your every movement in the store so that it would be this automated process. You just walk in, you grab something, you walk out, it's all automatic. But it's like at the end of the day, they ended up backing off of that because it was very cumbersome to do this install, and it was costing millions of dollars per store, right? Relying on all this hardware versus having something on the device level, having it wireless. And, I don't know if they were working on that technology or what, but definitely a couple of years ago when they were doing that, they started to implement it on stores across the nation, and then they started to pull it back.
I thought it was great. This is the concept stores that went out there. And I think we'll see it again.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's technology is not going to go away.
Yeah, it's just cost prohibitive right now.
Yeah.
Yes, and I totally agree with you. We need to thank these early adopters that went through the risk of technology that was not ready, because they opened the door for better technology. Oh, yeah. And what now is available today in the wireless space.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. We could keep going, but we have had our time here. Fabio, where can people find you if they want to get more information about you?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn, Fabio Zaniboni, and our website is bubblenet.com. And if you want to send me an email, my email is fabio@bubblenet.com.
Well, thank you, Fabio.
Guys, it was a pleasure.
Yeah. Take care.
Have a great day.
We'll let you go.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
That is very true. That passion, it is. that final, like a touch that you say it. That's what is selling it. Well, this was one of the best. This may be actually the first podcast that I will listen to. Honestly, because of all these levels of sleep, all of this lights he was talking about, it was like Jesus, it was phenomenal.
This has been the ArcFluence Podcast. Please subscribe on the platform of your choice and leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you. As always, you can get more information and additional content on arcfluence.com.